Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first ever recording of a No Rocket Ships podcast. First volunteer/victim is, I'd almost want to call him a friend. Work friends, I think, is probably where we get to, right? Because we live about a mile from each other, but we don't see each other socially, you know. And I think we probably have both deliberately kept it that way because there's a work-life balance. But we get on very well. Jim Herbert, welcome.
Thank you, Jamie. Lovely to be here. Slightly nervous. I agree with everything you've said so far.
Good. So this is not going to be an interview with Jim as the CEO of Patchworks, or indeed, I'm just interviewing Jim because he's an interesting guy. The things that you don't know about Jim actually are more interesting than the things that Jim tells everybody on the internet. So this is going to be a conversation about those things, I think. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was why you're doing what you're doing now, because I know that you were one of the founders of a very successful digital agency which sold a number of years ago. You bought all the toys, you didn't do anything for a while, and presumably you could have not done anything at all for forever. So I want to know why.
It's an interesting point, right? And you know as well as a lot of other people in the industry that know me know that I have numerous chips on both shoulders. I'm a very well balanced individual, therefore. Let's sort of look at the timeline, right? So I went to a secondary school in the New Forest, on the edge of a New Forest, Totton, which is not really a New Forest, but it is under the New Forest District Council. Hounsdown Secondary School. Also spat out Stu Jackson, who's one of the founders of Octopus Energy. So fair play to those guys. Those teachers knew what they were doing. But you do get a bit of a, what did I want? I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was 30, retire, cars, private jets and all that malarkey. And didn't quite get to 30, but did well. Sold Generic before I was 40, like you said. So, we started out in 2007, sold to LBI in 2012, earned out by 2014. Hung around for another year, actually. Was really enjoying it at Digitas. I worked at a digital agency in 2000 called Metrius. It was within KPMG. You remember when the dot-com boom was taking place? This is probably for the old people's podcast, but there we go.
The first boom, what we like to call what was the holiday business boom? What were they called? The
Lastminute.com.
lastminute.com boom, the
Yeah.
boom that never really boomed.
The boom that never really boomed. I remember Pets.com, I think it was, raised $400 million for a dog walking business. It's absolutely crazy.
Do you remember? Do you remember? And you're old enough to remember a business called Jungle.com.
Yeah, yeah.
So Jungle were my client. So Steve Bennett, who owned and founded Jungle, was actually the founder of Software Warehouse, who were my client way, way, way back in the pre-internet days. Sorry.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was mad, right? So coming back to, I really enjoyed working in a true digital agency surrounded by creatives. And, I was a programmer, so being surrounded by people with crazy hair who could talk about brand and user experience, loved it, right? It was great fun. So I really enjoyed being back in Brick Lane with LBI and all that kind of good stuff. But it got to 2015, Publicis bought Sapient, there was some internal politics. It just made sense to stop. And that was it, right? I decided I was retired. I got rid of my old LinkedIn account, did the Attack the Tour 8 years ago today, hence the, all the cycling malarkey, haven't cycled for ages. The interesting thing is it comes down to purpose, I think, right? What's your purpose in life? So all those kind of things that I thought I wanted as a 16-year-old at secondary school, the cars and the travelling and all that kind of good stuff. The reality is, with two young kids in school and a long-term partner, so I've been with my wife, we've been married 25 years this year, we've been together for 30 plus years, and I'll try and work out during the podcast exactly what it is so I don't get in trouble if you listen to it, but since 1991, right? So you're not going to have that. You don't get that flexibility, ultimately to do all that kind of, what would now be Instagram, look at all this amazing lifestyle. And it's pretty hollow, right? Who wants to really live that life? It sounds amazing. And so after a couple of years of getting through a 28 item checklist of things I wanted to do around the house, sort out the garage, I found myself in garden centres with my dad, which I'm glad I did because he's in a home with dementia now, so I got to spend some good time with him. you know, doing very little, ultimately, doing the washing up, doing the housework, because I had no excuses anymore. I'm not working, right? So, you know, we have a team marriage, is why we've been together so long. Yeah, Rachel had to go at me once, you know, why are you sat on the sofa again? You've got no, I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, I've just got used to you doing that bit and me doing the work bit. So, and it's like, oh, where is the purpose? What am I here for? And so I dipped my toe back in the water in 2017. So Greenlight, if you remember the company, so it was Kevin, Tom, Greenlight Commerce. I rejoined LinkedIn. I was on holiday in Greece, and Kev Murray spotted it immediately and went, "What are you doing back on LinkedIn? I can't, you know, because you appear in your contacts." I mean, within an hour. And I said, "Well, I'm just thinking I might do some bits and pieces." "Well, we need a Ned if you're interested in that." So I went and helped them out. I wasn't a true Ned. I didn't want to go for Ned Insurance. Never done it before. But I kind of did some board level advisory and helped them grow the commerce business there. And it got me a little bit more purpose, got me kind of back into it. I did some work for a private equity firm that bought into a company called Visa Filing Services. Really cool business, actually, travel business. They manage all the passports and visa applications for 52 countries around the world. Very interesting private equity business. All their money came from governments. They didn't monetize any of the 140 million applicants they got every year. You put $2 on that, and there's a $280 million. The business case wrote itself to write a digital transformation piece to help them out. And that kind of got me back into it. And then I worked with IATA, Shine's business, because they were Mike and Eric guys, a similar thing, helping those guys, you know, scale up that business to the sort of £6-7 million business they are today. What it didn't do is give me that kind of real purpose in life still, because you're doing fractional advisory, you don't own anything, right? So it was the big commerce opportunity that came along during COVID when Mark left, that really got me back into full-time employment. Did that for 2.5 years, really enjoyed it. Running sales, ultimately, that's what the GM role is at big commerce. So I think I'll come on to our subsequent questions later on. Great fun, brilliant team, grew the team. More importantly, grew the ARR of that business to kind of where it is today. And then also realised that having run a business, I wasn't running this business effectively. I was in a box, a branch manager for an American business, and the Patchworks opportunity came along. And so here I am. And I think the real thing, though, is its purpose, ultimately. It comes back down to purpose again. Just going to turn my light off, man. Sorry. There's a... Yeah, so it was, it's that purpose in life. You know, what are you here for? Now, look, I'm 52 now. Things will change, right? I think things will change as we go through.
It's very interesting. So the thing that strikes me, right? So I don't want to get too deep here, but your reputation in the market, and frankly mine too, is that we're both relatively needy, socially needy, hardworking, you know, older blokes. I'm quite a lot older than you. I'm 6 years older than you. It's so interesting. You're very unusual in that you don't have to be doing this. And yet you are not just in it, but you're right all the way in it, right? Soup to nuts. Every time I WhatsApp you, you're there. No, it's you sent me a fucking WhatsApp on Sunday morning, having done no, that's fine, right? Welcome to my world. But you're right, you're all the way in, right? And I get it because Patchworks is all encompassing now, right? And I think that's probably what you really, really love about this stuff. You know, it might not be about the money anymore. It might be, right? But equally, it's about wanting to be all in on something.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I think that's fair. I think it's, my wife says I have a restless mind. Dave, our founder at Patchworks, is convinced I'm neurodiverse in some way. And
Yeah.
probably am. Yeah, without a doubt. I think, you know, loads of us from our generation are probably undiagnosed of something. But you know,
Maybe we could all go. Maybe we could all go and have a test and decide. You know, wonder whether maybe we could all be diagnosed. I wonder what I'd have. I can't concentrate on anything, so presumably I've got.
Yeah, 100%. Right, I'm with you 100% on that, and I'm all for it. But at the same time, if I have a test, what am I going to do with the results? What difference will it make? You know, that's kind of where I've got to. But again, Gen X, right? That's kind of us in a nutshell. It is ownership, Jamie. You're right. Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's definitely part of it. I do have a restless mind. I get bored easily. Like the cycling thing, all in on that. did the adapter tour, haven't cycled properly for 2.5 years, 3 years probably. Look, I was looking at my bikes yesterday thinking, maybe I should sell these because I'm never going to use them again. But I won't do that. I will get back out on the bike, gravel bike, obviously, because I am scared of the roads now. Yeah, I think that's what it is. But like I say, things will change. Things will change, you know. So I think it's when is enough enough? I think is one of the questions you're going to get to at some point.
Well, we'll come back to when is enough while you think about it. But you alluded earlier, a minute ago to sales, right? And it's going to be I mean, I'd like to start talking about the things that nobody ever talks about in tech to agree on this podcast. Let's talk about sales in tech. We both been involved in sales in tech. Me as effectively always on the outside, right? Just on the outside. I've started conversations for 1,000 clients over 20 years. I've seen the conversations through to the deal, but we've never really seen the deal happen in our world. We're never really in the room where the promises are made. And yet we all know that promises are made that are very often in tech. I mean, amazingly often in tech, not kept.
Yeah.
I mean, I find it incredible, really, that, and I still do, right? I find it incredible that customers don't ever really get cross about it, even though they know it's happened to them. Everybody appears to just sort of get away with it slightly. And it comes from the idea that a piece of tech is built because it can be, and then it sort of finds a purpose because somebody bends it in a particular way and tries to find a customer need that it might solve. That's how tech has always been built, right? It's not, there's a problem, I'm going to go and try and fix it by building this tech. It's, oh, I built a cool thing. So we talked about it a little bit before in the past, but talk to me about smoke and mirrors in tech. You've been part of it, I know, at least once, because I know that Patchworks, what you did and what you've done at Patchworks, to sell something that hadn't quite been built yet for a period of time as soon as you started. Now it exists and it's great, and we're all fanboys. But talk to me about that, because you've seen a lot of that over the years.
Yeah, I have, and I hate it. Right, I hate blatant lying for obvious reasons. It doesn't work in business. So you and I, like we talk about a lot, have been around a long time. And needy people that we are, with a reputation for it. That's because we're in this business for a long time. But I think I'd also say that you and I both are straight shooters, because to get to our age and be in a business, if you're not, you're found out pretty quickly. So there are salespeople that I have worked with in tech over the years that eventually can't get another job because the churn rate of what they've been selling is too high for SaaS, or they've annoyed too many people in large enterprise retail, or it's a classic thing. They've annoyed this program manager who's now head of technology at a massive grocer. That's never going to get in there. I bought from that person. I bought from him because it's almost invariably a bloke, and I won't go back to them, if you know what I mean.
And typically, has that person lied about what the product can do off their own bat, or are they under so much pressure to do that to close a deal that they end up doing it? Where does it sort of come from?
Well, this is the thing. It's a nuanced question because there is pressure, and there is sales targets you've got to hit. With very few exceptions, I would argue that most people are just bending or pushing the roadmap or the truth of what can be done, demonstrating something. Because also in sales, very unusual to find a technical salesperson, right? So I was a technical salesperson. So my big scenario was, I know we can do this because I could do it. Now I could do it, but I probably could do it 10 times better than the graduate that might be coming along to do it, if you know what I mean. Which, if you're talking to a really large SI, that's classically the way it was done, wasn't it? If you know what I mean. When I worked at KPMG, it was tip of the pyramid stuff. I was one of those graduates. It was, right, you route march through the project. The guy with 10 years experience who knows how to do it in 4 minutes will pop in occasionally to tell you what you're doing wrong and then leave again. So it might be that the sales guy can walk in and go, I've done this, or we've done this as a business over here, so we can do it for you. What I didn't mention is the fact it took 2 years and X $million when they know the budget is 300 grand, right? Because they're trying to get their sales target. One of the things, coming back to when I went to interview big commerce, one of the questions, what questions have you got for us? And you got all the usual tribe ones. But I said to Brent and Mark O, process. If I think that BigCommerce isn't a fit for this, are you okay for me to say no and walk away from it? And to their absolute credit, they both said yes. They said, we're happy with that, because we don't want people causing us issues later on, bad reputation, churn, ultimately. Revenue recognition in SaaS for BC, they couldn't really recognise the revenue till they'd launched to a certain extent, depending on how the deal was structured. So if you never launched, great, you've sold nothing, but I've paid you commission on it, right? If you know what I mean. So that's kind of what I try to put in with Patchworks. And come back to your point, with a new platform that came along, it was in alpha when I started. I accelerated it into beta. It was interesting actually, because I made a point of saying to the sales guys, don't tell people it's ready. Show them this, but say it won't be there till that point, right? And on the whole they did. But I was already up against people that had been sold to before I started, who, this is not what I was promised. I was shown these sort of windows and screens, and I've got this and an agency doing the work. So that was part of the first thing we had to unpick ultimately. I'm really pleased to say, by the way, one of those people who came to me in my first 5 weeks, one of the many issues I sort of had to deal with, and I said, look, you've written the contract up, mate, it never happened, sorry, it shouldn't have happened from that perspective. They're now back and they're building it themselves on a new platform. Having gone and sought another solution and come back and made their own choice there. That's the interesting thing. Trial account, had a look, looked at LinkedIn and gone, oh, okay, basically salesperson, give me a price, I'm in now, and that's the opposite of what we're talking about, I think.
I just find it amazing that I mean, we used to see it particularly in, I think we probably saw it a lot when there was real competition in the e-com platform space, right? When it was Magento versus Salesforce versus Hybris, that sort of, those three were so close together for quite a long time. There was true competition to it, and it got very, very ugly for a while, I think, probably, and people were being misled without question. And also the buyer at that point wasn't as experienced as they are now. I was talking to somebody yesterday who was telling me that the sales cycle since they last sold an e-com platform, I think they were one of the first Shopify employees in the UK, and now they're in an agency, a Shopify agency, but that was 5 years ago. He was saying that the conversation 5 years ago was 2 calls in a month and then deal done.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's 9 months and a long time, because we're at the point now where the buyer wants this to be their last ever re-platform. If they're going to do it now, they never want to do it again.
Yeah.
So I just wonder whether, and so then let's talk about roadmap, right? Because you alluded to the fact that people just push the roadmap. That I don't think there's enough conversation generally about the roadmap and what problems it causes for the sales cycle, because as you say, people pick things out of a roadmap, tell people it's out of the box now, etc., etc., etc. Where does that conversation go? And what happens when the roadmap is delayed by or changed, materially by a year, or that thing never gets delivered, and yet a customer's expecting it?
Before I get onto that, I'll just say one thing, a comment you made there. They want this to be the last re-platforming. Great, I agree with that. I want world peace. It will never be the last re-platforming. Everything's changing all the time. We did a lot of work at Syneric in the early days with Friends Provident over in Salisbury, building out their IFA portal. And I had to sell in, even though I was kind of like a technical team leader, basically I had a sort of CS sales piece. I had to sell in the upgrade from HTML3 to 4, and one of their architects went mad. You've sold us a total dummy with this website. You've got to rebuild all the HTML, and that's disgraceful. I mean, it's not me, it's technology's moved on. This is not an IBM 3270 terminal they were used to. That hadn't changed in 40 years. So good luck with that. And that's why roadmaps exist, right? I'll bring it back, there you go. It needs more honesty, I think, is where that's at. A roadmap. We have a published roadmap at Patchworks. I learned that from Hybris actually. They had a really good published roadmap for years. Now, interestingly, they had a second demo version of the platform that the partners didn't have access to. So a couple of times I turned up, especially when the telco accelerator came out, and said, "Where's all that bundling stuff I saw?" And I, "What are you talking about? It's not in there." Well, it definitely is. I've seen it. And they had seen it because there was like this internal only version of like alpha roadmap, and there's part of that issue, right? I think the problem with roadmap stuff, and come back to some of the stuff we did at BC got sold, and then when Mark took back over from me, I'd meet him for lunch and he'd give me a lot of hassle about the churn rate because people were leaving because of language or whatever it was in Europe. That stuff existed in the product, right? Ted Baker did go live with 12 plus languages live on the site. It was headless, but it was all in there, if you know what I mean. So it could be done. I think sometimes though, you have a solutions engineer whose job is to demo something, and they build it really quickly, and there it all is, right? That's what you can do. Is it productionized? Is it what you really want as a customer? Do you want, looking at some of the other composable e-commerce platforms out there, I didn't realise that you would need to build me a product ingestion flow and editing software around it. What do you mean I need this? Because when it was demoed, it was like, yeah, you had the product that way, forget about that. Look at the checkout, it's amazing, right? So,
and you're seeing it for a minute in a demo. And as you say, that's the nuance, isn't it? Because the solution engineer is under pressure from the AE to do it simply and quickly, and to sort of then shut the fuck up me. I think those are the nuances, aren't they? And I think that I'm aware that somebody, a retailer that I know, was at an Emarsys demo for 2.5 hours with three of their colleagues 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. And
the AE was trying to get the meeting to close because they'd had enough of the client asking difficult questions of the solution engineer. Well, hang on. You're an AE and you want the meeting to stop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's immediately got my back up, right?
Yeah. Something about that's not right, is it? So then, and obviously some of the issue here comes from the reason that this podcast and newsletter exists, right? The idea that there's a rocket ship, the idea that there's a VC somewhere behind you going, come on, let's go, and let's go really quickly. And growing is more important than winning and making people happy. Interestingly, now you look at the ecom market, Shopify, very profitable, stable, obsessed with the product. Vtex, 20 years old, profitable, stable. Centra, these are companies that are being relatively careful in the way that they. Who have I missed? I don't know. Who else do we think?
They're all my partners.
Who else is in the market that's really winning now? I mean, BC's not winning now at the moment. Stools is not winning now at the moment. Those were the rocket ships, I suppose, to a degree. I'm not, and I know there are more of them. But what's your feeling about? You're a VC backed or a PE backed business. I don't sense that you're under huge amounts of pressure in the role you're in now, but you've obviously witnessed it and seen it happen.
That's just my smiley demeanour and face.
Okay, yeah, you are under huge amounts of pressure.
Yeah. No, I think we're in a good spot, and I think it comes back to the things we've been talking about on the sales side, right? Say what we do and what we do well. Be honest when we make mistakes, and be honest about where stuff is in the roadmap. Like if this is roadmap, right? So we released virtual environments a few weeks ago, depending on when you listen to this, into beta deliberately. And sure enough, there's a bug in it. There you go. But it's in beta. So we were really honest about it. Sorry about the bug. We fixed that bug over the weekend. This weekend just gone because there's a launch that needed it to go out there, right? So that, and actually the feedback I got from that customer was that this is why I bought into you guys, because it's not just the product, it's the way you deal with us and talk to us. Although that kind of interaction is not massively scalable, right? So it's the other side of it. It's I totally believe if you're a product platform company, you've got to have a good product / platform, right? And you've got to know your ICP, your ideal customer profile, and sell to it ultimately. And then, do you know what? The third thing, bit of a diversion here, but it comes back to our earlier conversation. Have an educated buyer. Educate them yourself almost to a certain extent, right? Because
I think, and actually, you're in that situation with Patchworks, right? Because you're making the market for something that didn't exist before, that people still don't understand. Really don't understand. Lots of people sort of don't want it to work. The SIs have been making hundreds of thousands and millions of pounds out of integration work for many years, and Patchworks eradicates that revenue stream for a lot of people. So it's an interest. You are making, so you need to be really careful about who you sell to and who buys it, and that it's good.
Yeah, exactly. And in this area that we're in, I have to educate them on iPaaS. Why that's different from just integration. And then why we think for you we are the best choice here, like commercially with the features, the roadmap, and everything else that sort of exists. And a lot of the way we do that is to get as much information out there as possible. Ultimately, come back to the educated buyer piece. It's about the most successful projects we've worked on is when there's been an expert in the room helping make the selection decision, right? Who's seen the other software. Your James Girds, people like that out there that work in the selection process because they've seen the other software. They get it, right? So they can ask that difficult question that the AE doesn't want the SE to know. But they'll ask it of everybody, right? That's the key thing that AE knows to understand is like if you can answer those questions, the difficult ones well, there's every chance you're going to win that work. Even if your product doesn't do it, just say, no, we don't do that. Yeah, and it might lose me the deal. But if you can, that's the way you should be dealing in sales. That's always what I try to get into my teams ultimately. One last point on that though, Jamie, is that if you've got a big sales team, you can't police it all, right? You're up here saying this, it goes down to these guys, it goes down to those guys.
Yeah.
You need to be able to police that.
Look at a business like Shopify. How many salespeople are there out there selling Shopify? All of that product information is coming from Toronto. How many releases are there? There's 100 features in every single release they produce. I mean, just knowing what the platform does, really knowing what it does all the time. No one listens to it.
Well, it's a massive platform, so I would argue that there are experts over here in payments that probably don't know about the AI stuff that's happening in the themes, right? And vice versa. So that's why it's winning, mind you. It's brilliant.
Yes, no, I agree. Then one last thing, because we said we weren't going to have a long conversation about all the other stuff. So this is not a when are you going to retire conversation, but given what you said at the beginning of this conversation about purpose, etc., when is enough? And I'll context it by saying I'm a little bit further ahead than you in age, not in money, but I have decided that I've got enough.
Yeah.
I'm doing what I'm doing now for slightly different reasons. I mean, I still like making money, right? It's fine. But there's a weird thing that's going on with my motivation at the moment, which is sort of strange. Tell me about that. Have you thought about it?
So another little sort of revelation about why I went back into full-time employment. Just before COVID, I didn't have to get out of bed in the morning, so I didn't. Right, I've completely changed now. As I've got older, by the way, I was up at 5:30 this morning again. So if I had that kind of thing then, it would have maybe been different. But Rachel and I would be there, and our kids would be getting up to take themselves to school. See you later, Dad. And I turned to Rachel one day. I was like, "Is this what it's like for, in the nicest possible way, working class lad, chip on shoulders and everything else? Is this what it's like for kids whose parents are on benefits?" Because how am I demonstrating to them that hard work? My dad had his own business and he was out all the time working in it, and that's where I got a lot of my drive from. Ultimately, I saw the difference it made to our family. Growing up. So how do I motivate my son and daughter into doing the same sort of thing? So I can't be just sitting around doing nothing. One of the dads at school thought I was a drug dealer because I turned up in a flash car to pick the kids up after we sold the business and I've given up. And it's like, who's this bloke from Totton living in Winchester in a nice fancy car? So when is enough enough? I don't know is the honest answer. The totally honest answer. I've got a job to do here at Patchworks. I want to take us to 10 million revenue at least. There's a number that I want to get to. What that then looks like for a business is, will it be an exit to another trade? Will it be an IPO, something like that? I've got a job to do for the investors and the founder, and I'm enjoying doing that. It's a bit odd, really, having run your own business, because even as a CEO, you're still working for other people, right?
Strange. There's no way on God's earth I could ever go and have a job again. Which is why the other thing I think is really unusual about you, that you've gone from being in control to not in control, but seemingly happy not being in control, or at least happy-ish.
Happy-ish. I mean, I've got the right level of control now, I'd argue, because I think BC was great fun, but I did start when I couldn't influence things like roadmap or other bits and pieces because I could just shout from the sidelines and get told to shut up. That's when you're like, okay. I mean, that's a very poor representation of what actually happened, by the way. But that's kind of where
it's still going in.
Yeah, hooray!
Hooray!
I didn't mean it in that way. I loved. I can do that now. I can influence the roadmap. I can talk to the guys. I can get them to sort of follow the vision of the business, making complex integrations more simple. But when is enough enough? At the same time, life moves on. My dad's in a care home, the kids are getting older, got to get my son through university, I want to keep motivating them. It's all very well having money locked up in investments and other bits and pieces, but if you do stop working, it starts to draw down. And again, that's that chip on the shoulder thing. It's like, I really want to just watch it. It would never run out. Well, it could do. That's lots of words. But, you're like, when you watch it going down, you start drawing into your savings. You're like, it's quite nice having an income stream coming in. But I think we'll get to mid-50s, and I think different things will probably happen from that perspective. Because again, also, it's not fair on once the kids are both at university. We empty nested for the first time ever. This is again probably for the other podcast. A few months ago, so my son was travelling around Vietnam. Like most of Winchester, it seemed to turn out. The full moon party at Koh Phangan had about 40 people from Peter Simmons there. Which again is different from when I did it. I didn't know anybody travelling. Yeah, it was odd. It was odd, the two of us just being in the house on our own, and that's what starts to make you think. I think, I'll know when it happens, but I don't know when that is. Does that make sense? It's a really trite answer, but I don't know.
No. I mean, it's just very strange. I mean, that's why, for Jim's allusion to, I started another podcast with my friend Laura a few months ago called We Are Old. So if you want to listen to it, you can find it. And it's about the aging journey. And actually, we've now done 3 episodes. We've got a 4th today. The first one's on when is enough money. The second one is about invisibility for women in midlife. The third one is about physical health, physical fitness, and how that you can try and find the motivation to really invest in it. With a very smug man called Bart, who is a beautiful man, but he is just incredibly motivated, and I find it very difficult to reconcile my level of commitment to his. He did drag me out on a bike ride the other week and nearly killed me. But this is interesting, right? So thank you very much, Jim, for being my first victim. I think that was a very honest and interesting conversation. I hope everybody else finds it interesting. Many, many more to come over the next few weeks, and I think we're good.
Yeah, great. All right, thanks for having me on, Jamie. I hope, I hope it's interesting to people, and great to be here.
Good.